Welcome to Life Stories Network, where real emotions meet powerful lessons. Today I'm sharing a story that still feels raw. A story about how my own dad destroyed something I worked hard for, and how his sabotage became the fuel that pushed me higher than I ever thought possible. I always thought that no matter how flawed family could be, at least during the big moments they'd step back and let you shine. I was wrong. My story starts the week before my big promotion pitch. I had been working for months on a project that could change the direction of my career. Late nights, endless research, countless revisions. I poured my entire heart into it, all stored neatly on my $2,400 laptop. That laptop wasn't just a machine. It was my second brain, my safe place, and my lifeline to the future I was building. My dad had always been skeptical of me. He thought my work was silly, too digital, too modern. He would mock me in small ways, asking why I didn't get a real job like him back in the day, with tools you could touch and results you could see. He hated that I worked from home, typing all day, sometimes talking to clients on video calls. To him, it wasn't real work, just screen time. But he had no idea how much was riding on this one promotion. It wasn't just a title. It meant stability, respect, and finally, independence. The night before my pitch, I was rehearsing. My mom peeked into the room, gave me an encouraging smile, but my dad just walked past with that look of disapproval I had known since I was a child. I ignored it. I told myself his opinion didn't matter because the only thing that mattered was tomorrow. But life has a cruel way of teaching you lessons at the exact wrong moment. When I stepped out of my room to grab a glass of water, I heard a loud crash. My heart stopped. I ran back and saw it. My laptop smashed on the floor, screen cracked beyond recognition, and my dad, standing there, holding the empty desk space like he had just accidentally bumped into it. His excuse was short. It was in the way. "You shouldn't leave expensive toys lying around." I couldn't breathe. Toys? That laptop was my life, my work, my future. I felt the world collapse under my feet. Every file, every presentation, every carefully crafted pitch was gone. I had backups, but not the polished version I needed for tomorrow. My dad didn't even apologize. He just shrugged and told me maybe this was a sign to rethink my life choices. His words cut deeper than the sight of my broken laptop. It wasn't just the destruction of a machine. It was proof that he didn't believe in me, and worse, that he wanted me to fail. That night I couldn't sleep. I cried, I paced, I thought about quitting. I thought maybe my dad was right. Maybe I wasn't cut out for this. Maybe I was chasing a dream too big. But then something inside me shifted. Maybe it was anger, maybe it was survival. I realized that if I gave up now, his sabotage would win. And I wasn't about to let him win. Not this time, so I pulled myself together. I dug through every backup I had, every email, every scrap of data stored in the cloud. I stayed up all night piecing together the presentation from scratch. It wasn't perfect, but it was raw, real, and mine. By morning, my eyes burned and my hands shook, but I had something to present. Not polished, but powerful. When I walked into that room, exhausted but determined, I felt something I never expected. Freedom. Because I wasn't performing for perfection anymore. I was performing to prove that nothing, not even sabotage from my own family, could break me. And when I delivered that pitch, my bosses saw it. They saw the fire in my words, the passion in my ideas, and the resilience in my story. The promotion didn't just come my way. It came with praise I'll never forget. They told me they saw leadership, creativity, and strength. They said the imperfections in my slides only made my points more authentic. I walked out of that room with the promotion in hand and tears in my eyes. But when I got home, my dad was waiting, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "So how did it go?" he asked, almost mocking. I looked him in the eye and told him the truth. "I got it. And your sabotage made me stronger." His face froze, and for the first time, I saw silence in him. No comeback, no criticism, just silence. After the promotion meeting, I felt like I was walking on air. But the truth is, that walk back home was heavy. I was proud, yes, but I was also hurt. It's hard to celebrate when the person who should have been clapping the loudest was the one who tried to pull you down. I didn't even know how to face him. When I got inside, my mom hugged me tight. She had tears in her eyes when I told her the news. She whispered, "I always knew you could do it." That moment should have been enough, but then my dad cleared his throat. He didn't congratulate me. Instead, he asked, "So what exactly did you say to make them buy into your little ideas?" That word again, little. He didn't realize that with every dismissive comment, he was proving exactly why I had to rise. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell him how much he had hurt me, how much he had risked with his so-called accident. But instead, I stayed calm. I told him I spoke with honesty, that I didn't try to impress anyone with flashy slides. I simply told the story of what I believed in. And for once, people listened. He looked away almost like he didn't want to hear the truth. The following days were strange. On one hand, I was adjusting to my new role, which came with new respect, higher pay, and more responsibility. On the other hand, at home, there was a wall between me and my father. He avoided me most of the time, but when we did cross paths, I could feel the tension. It was like he didn't know how to handle the fact that his sabotage had backfired. One evening, I found him sitting in the living room, staring at the broken pieces of my laptop that I still hadn't thrown away. He asked quietly, "So what's next for you?" It wasn't mocking this time. It sounded uneasy, maybe even curious. I told him I had big plans, bigger than anything I had dared to say out loud before. That I wanted to lead projects, mentor others, and build something lasting. For the first time, he didn't interrupt me. He just nodded slowly. But even with that small crack in his armor, I couldn't forget the pain. I couldn't forget that in my darkest hour, my dad wasn't my supporter. He was the obstacle. That night, I promised myself something. I would never again measure my worth through his approval. His silence and sabotage had taught me that my strength comes from within, not from anyone else's belief in me. At work, my reputation grew fast. People noticed how I handled the promotion pitch under pressure, and they started to trust me with bigger challenges. It wasn't just about the job anymore. It was about proving to myself that resilience can't be broken. I found myself staying late not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I was building something bigger than a career. I was building proof that no amount of sabotage, not even from blood, could define me. My mom became my quiet supporter during all this. She would leave me little notes on the fridge, reminding me to eat, reminding me that she was proud. I don't think she ever forgave my dad for what he did. Sometimes I'd catch her looking at him with disappointment in her eyes. She never said it out loud, but I knew she was angry on my behalf. One weekend, while I was preparing another major presentation, my dad knocked on my door. It was strange because he never knocked. He usually barged in with his comments. He asked if he could talk. I didn't say much, just nodded. He stood there awkwardly, then finally admitted, "I didn't think you'd make it. I thought if that laptop broke, you'd give up." I was wrong. Hearing that was both validating and heartbreaking. Because what kind of father admits he wanted his child to give up? I asked him why. Why he would try to destroy something so important. His answer shocked me. He said, "Because I didn't want you to waste your life chasing something that might never pay off. I thought I was saving you from disappointment." That was his version of love. Twisted, controlling, and cruel. But in his mind, protective. I realized then that my father had never been taught to dream. He had only been taught to survive. And because of that, he couldn't understand my way of living. I didn't forgive him that night. But I did understand him a little more. He came from a world where failure meant ruin, where taking risks wasn't brave. It was foolish, and in his mind, I was gambling my life away on something he couldn't grasp. Breaking my laptop was his way of trying to stop me before I failed. But what he didn't see was that his sabotage was exactly what made me succeed. That conversation stayed with me. It didn't heal the wound, but it started a shift. I realized I couldn't change him, and I didn't need to. I only needed to keep building my own path with or without his blessing. And so, I kept going. Every project I led became another reminder that resilience matters more than approval. Every challenge I overcame felt like another brick laid in the foundation of my independence. My father watched quietly from the sidelines. He never admitted pride, but sometimes I caught glimpses of it in his eyes, in the way he asked subtle questions about my work. Still, deep down, I carried the memory of that broken laptop. It wasn't just a machine anymore. It was a symbol. A reminder of the moment I realized no one could stop me, not even the man who raised me. The months after my promotion felt like I was living in two worlds. At work, I was thriving. People respected me, trusted me, and even looked to me for guidance. I was finally seen as more than just another employee. I was becoming a leader. But at home, things were quieter, heavier. My dad still didn't know how to talk to me. We lived under the same roof, but there was a distance between us that hadn't been there before. One night, after a long day, I came home and found my father sitting at the kitchen table. The broken laptop, which I had tucked away in the storage room, was now on the table in front of him. He looked up when I entered and said, "You should throw this away." I froze. For me, that laptop was not trash. It was history. It was a reminder of the night everything changed. I told him, "No, I'm keeping it." He didn't argue. He just stared at it, then muttered, "It reminds me of my mistake." That was the closest thing to an apology I ever got. It wasn't the words I had dreamed of hearing, but it was something. It told me he knew what he had done, even if his pride wouldn't let him say it outright. I realized then that some people, no matter how much they love you in their own way, will never be able to express it the way you need. As I rose higher in my career, opportunities I had only imagined started opening up. I was invited to speak at conferences, lead bigger teams, and collaborate with people I once looked up to. Each time I stood on a stage or in front of a new team, I thought about that night with the broken laptop. And strangely, instead of bitterness, I felt gratitude. Not gratitude for the pain, but gratitude for the strength it unlocked in me. It was during one of these events that I shared my story. I didn't name my dad, but I spoke about sabotage, resilience, and turning pain into fuel. The audience connected with it deeply. Afterward, several people came up to me and said they had been through something similar. A parent who doubted them, a partner who tried to hold them back, a friend who sabotaged their chances. They told me my story gave them hope. And in that moment, I realized my pain wasn't just mine anymore. It had become a lesson for others, too. Back at home, things slowly shifted. My dad never became the supportive, cheering parent I had wanted, but he stopped standing in my way. Sometimes he would sit silently while I shared my work with my mom, just listening. Other times he would quietly ask about my projects, pretending it was casual, but I could see the curiosity in his eyes. He would never say the words, but I knew deep down he was starting to respect me. The day I finally moved into my own place was bittersweet. My mom cried as she hugged me goodbye, telling me she was proud. My dad just gave me a firm nod, the kind of nod men give when they can't bring themselves to say the words. And honestly, that was enough. I had stopped waiting for him to validate me. My success was mine, built on my own resilience. I kept the broken laptop with me. I placed it on a shelf in my new home, not as a reminder of pain, but as a symbol of growth. Every time I looked at it, I remembered the night I thought my world was ending, only to realize it was the start of something greater. Over time, my relationship with my father softened. He never apologized in the way I hoped, but he showed small gestures, fixing things around my new place without being asked, bringing me food when I worked late, calling me awkwardly just to check in. These were his ways of saying sorry, his ways of showing love, and I accepted them for what they were. Looking back now, I see that his sabotage was a turning point in my life. It forced me to rise when I wanted to collapse. It showed me that strength doesn't come from a perfect plan or perfect support. It comes from standing up when someone tries to push you down. It comes from refusing to give in to doubt, even when that doubt comes from the people closest to you. So if you've ever felt sabotaged, underestimated, or doubted by those around you, I want you to hear this. You are stronger than the sabotage. You are bigger than the doubt. And sometimes, the very people who try to hold you back end up being the reason you rise. That broken laptop sits in my living room today, not as a scar, but as a trophy. A reminder that what was meant to break me became the reason I built myself stronger. And that is a lesson I carry with me every single day.